The presentation today is with Eileen Udry, Dr. Eileen Udry. She is someone I've known for several years. In fact, Eileen had quite a bit of input when we were putting the Pet Tutor together originally and making the design. I'm the president, again, Wes Anderson, president of Smart Animal Training Systems and one of the inventors of the Pet Tutor. And Eileen, when we were going through the process of creating the Pet Tutor, had several excellent inputs when we were still just putting it on the back of a napkin, so to speak.
I remember that well.
yeah, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. She has some really good input and has ended up being a very avid user of Pet Tutor, and I think has a lot to share with us today. Eileen earned her Ph.D. in exercise science and psychology. She is someone that I've known initially through a service dog training program here in Indiana, one that's based in the prison system in Indiana. It's one I'm active as a volunteer today. Next to me is my associate, Nick Meyer, and Amanda is my business partner. Amanda's on here too. Amanda's waving there. Thank you, Amanda. There's Amanda. And Amanda is our VP for marketing and sales. So if we have any questions, three of us are here to answer any of the organizational questions. And Eileen will be able to respond to any questions about how she's using Pet Tutor or the technical aspect of what she's doing. So she was the director for the service dog program based in the penitentiary for a long time, and that's where I got to know her initially. And she went on, she now runs a nonprofit, and this nonprofit provides behavior support and training for animal shelters. So she has a very broad perspective on what, as you could imagine, if you're not in a shelter already, a number of different behavior and training issues that come up in working with shelter dogs. And she's been using the Pet Tutor in some of those, which applies not just to shelter dogs. Shelter dogs come from homes, so obviously applies to animals in the home as well. So for the session today, we are going to give away, we have a couple of things we're going to give away. Free shipping if you place an order today, and one of our handy dandy feeder hooks. This is actually something that was designed to go over like the top of a door, and you could hang your Pet Tutor there. So if you place an order today, you get free shipping and the hook we'll put in there. We didn't have a limit on that, did we? Set that up. So whatever you order, it doesn't matter. If you've already got a Pet Tutor, you want to throw in an accessory, that'll give you free shipping, and the hook will be included with that. And Nick is sharing right now the code for that in the chat box. So if you don't get that or don't see it, it's in the chat box right now. It will be good for 24 hours from now. So this time, roughly tomorrow, that'll expire. But if you order anything between now and then, again, that'll be free shipping, and that hook will go in. And again, just a reminder, please keep yourself on mute, and then you can use the chat. And if we need to, we'll go to unmute, and Nick will handle that. Nick's going to handle all the technical issues today. And we will, I did mention we're going to be recording that, and that'll be posted later on. Let's see, anything else, guys? Nick or Amanda, anything else you want to add before we turn it over to Eileen?
I will just emphasize to please keep your microphones on mute. We will have time for questions. Eileen's got several videos that she's going to share with us tonight. So she will have time for questions after those videos are played. You guys can feel free to say it in the chat box, and I will relay that question over to Eileen, or feel free to unmute yourselves and ask the question just when we say that time is appropriate. Thank you guys very much. I think, Eileen, you are free to take it away.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with other folks who either are interested in the Pet Tutor or are thinking about a pet tutor. As Wes said, I go back a long way with the pet tutor, and I kind of think of myself as like a gorilla, and if you give me a coconut, I'm gonna go like this, and I'm gonna try to see what it can do. So I hope to share, I'm gonna share some videos today. It's kind of an eclectic mix of videos, and they all highlighting different ways that I've used the pet tutor over the years. So you'll see some of how we use it with animal shelters, and also with my own dogs and other dogs that either people I know or hang out with, working with their dogs. So just a couple caveats or full disclosures. I'm going to show some videos where people are training. It's kind of a, my philosophy is going to be warts, excuse me, warts and all. So there's lots of different ways to train behaviors. So I'm going to be showing what has worked for me, and actually in some cases what has not worked for me. So to kind of keep you from going to the school of hard knocks with regard to your pet tutor or using your pet tutor. So, I mean, I'll have grubby clothes on, I'll have late clicks, and it's just out there. But the main thing, I think that the point that I'm trying to make or help you see is just some of the potential of using the tool in a variety of ways. And I do want to do a shout out to the pet tutor team, especially on the technology end of things that we got ready for this. I have to tell you that I'm probably one of the few people at this point that are Zoom rookies. So Nick in particular on the pet tutor team has been really fantastic about answering questions, and I think that's just how they operate as a team. They're just there for you, whether you're a customer or whether you're somebody working with them on an event like this. So again, thanks for being here. Nick, if you could queue up the next video, and I'll start talking a little bit about that.
Definitely.
So if you can just put it on pause right there at the beginning, Nick.
Yeah.
So I can provide some background.
Okay.
I don't have a way of knowing from where I'm sitting who's out there and what your background is. So I'll just provide some context here. One of the original ways that I've started using the pet tutor was in the shelter environment. I've been doing shelter work for about the last 12 years. And I don't know if people are familiar with the click for calm procedures or click for quiet. It's also been called that. But those have been championed by Karen Pryor and others for using basically positive reinforcement in the shelter environment to keep the noise and stress for the dogs in particular down. And so this is how we're using the pet tutor. I will say there might be the volume might not be super high in this particular video, but I think you'll be able to see pretty clearly when dogs are getting reinforced through the pet tutor. So Nick, if you could forward that, please.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so for those of you that have been in animal shelters, you maybe have seen this pretty commonly. If you haven't, the isolation and boredom definitely take a toll. You'll see pacing, you'll see barking. So here we're using the pet tutor. Again, these adapted click for quiet procedures. This volunteer is working with this dog here. You can see him in his kennel, and she's out in the adoption aisle. Nick, could I get you to, I'm sorry, could you go back for just a sec here?
Of course.
Thanks. Okay, so dog is actually, we're experimenting with, in this particular video, where the best placement is of the pet tutor in relation to the dog. So you can see it hanging up there in the left. And when she clicks, she's out here in this adoption aisle, which is where members of the public would be if they were looking at possible dogs to adopt. And so she's maybe, I don't know, 8 or 10 feet away. What I love about this particular clip is, just to give you a background on this particular volunteer, there's usually a really big focus in animal shelters on walking dogs and getting dogs physical activity, which I am all about that. But not everybody can do that safely. This person, pushing 80 years old, and has had knee replacement, so her ability to walk some of the dogs that are maybe don't have great leash manners, et cetera, is kind of limited. And yet by this, I mean, she's just so into it, and I just love it. She's able to engage. She's able to help the dogs in a really concrete way in terms of, I mean, this was the same dog that was doing the repetitive pacing before. So it's getting him sort of off of that loop and into doing something that would be more likely to help him end up in a home. So just wanted to pass or underscore that point. If you could go ahead, Nick. Thanks. So she kind of leans in. She's she's able to be productive and safe. I just love this. Here we're using a multiple setup. So there's one for this dog. This was the dog that was spraying her food all over the place before just for fun. And now you can see her look up. She's waiting to catch her goodies. There's a second pet tutor working on the left. And when you see a hound being quiet in their kennel, that's something to behold. This dog is kind of past the basic stuff. So we're using, he's working on a relaxed down. So just, he gets it. Again, you see where he's getting the reinforcement. And here's that same dog from before, a better version of herself now. Her little tail, she's so eager to learn. She's just looking for something to do. When we position the pet tutor like this, we're able to move it very easily. It's right outside their kennel. And that volunteer that I was talking about before can move quickly or efficiently from one dog to the next, and not have to go into the kennel. And yet the dog still gets a fantastic experience in a short period of time. So you can't hear it, but there are other dogs barking. She's decided, I don't care. I'd rather lay here and get cookies. So yeah, it's definitely in terms of quality of life. It's a real...
University of Minnesota Primary Care Training Services. We have received some information a little while back, and I apologize for the delay.
Okay, so I don't know where that came from. So I guess we'll just open it up for questions at this point.
Yeah, and feel free. I don't see any questions in the chat right now, but feel free to unmute yourself, or if you don't feel comfortable with that, post the question in the chat and I'll relay it over to Eileen.
Hi, this is Jeanette. Do you hear me?
I do, Jeanette.
I wonder, is the dog able to see the helper, the human, in that video?
That is a fantastic question. Thank you. Our thought on that evolved over time, and yes, the dog is generally able to see the person in the adoption aisle, and we like it that way, or we found that to be helpful, because the dogs start orienting to the person out there, and I don't know if you've well, I don't think it was evident in the video, but in the one picture where there were 3 volunteers standing there and one person was clicking, we can then also use that to role play potential adopters being in that space, and when in fact it's a it's a volunteer, but the dogs orient to the person out in the adoption aisle. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it sure did. I noticed the dog was looking up at something or someone, and I wondered if it was a human. Because
Yeah.
my dogs almost immediately realized that I was the one controlling the pet tutor.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And-
And I think there's a way to use that, you know, to your advantage. That is why I tend not to use it and put it on bark mode, because I like the dog to be interactive. It's just a preference on my part. I like the dog to be interactive. And so for them to understand that there's a person involved, especially for a shelter dog, having that relevancy of a human, I think is an important, you know, sort of life lesson for them. Anyone else? Okay, well, cool.
I think there was oh no, that's not relevant to this. We'll get back to that later.
Yeah, that's we were debating on that. Okay.
Okay, all right. So,
Sorry. I did have a question, and that is, if you're using the manual mode for barking, does that tend to carry over into their barking behavior when there isn't anyone there?
So what we hope to do is create an overall program so that the pet tutor is one tool of numerous tools that are used to reduce barking. So hopefully, you know, we've got play groups in place, we've got training in place outside of their kennels, opportunities for the dog to, you know, interact and socialize with same species and other species. And so I'd like to think that through that combination of things, overall noise in the shelter is reduced so that the dogs are not barking when no one is there. But I can't really say if that's a function of, you know, the pet tutor taught the dog not to bark. I would like to think, you know, that helps, but there are other strategies in play that could have a bearing.
If you have a pet dog that barks when you're not home, would you use the same technique, or would you use the automatic?
Yeah, what an intriguing question. I think I would probably go with the automatic at that point. Yeah. I don't know if other people have had that experience and, you know, chime in, but I have not used it in that way much, and it would be, I think, but that would be my sense of how I would approach that.
I've got a couple questions in the chat too, Eileen. Melinda is saying that she has a 2-year-old poodle mix who is struggling with separation anxiety, which is somewhat related to probably what you see on the shelter application sometimes. Would you have any advice on how to utilize the pet tutor to help with separation anxiety?
Oh, golly. That would be a whole webinar on its own. Wes, if I'm not mistaken, you've had folks on or you've had interviews along those lines. Do I have that right?
No, that's right. There is a group. Well, there may be more than one, but Milena DeMartini Price is considered one of the international experts in separation anxiety, and she's used the pet tutor in different cases, not in all cases, but in some of her separation anxiety cases, and she has a book on the subject. So I think this would be a really good topic to just spend a whole hour on. One of the keys is to go slowly. Don't try the separation more than the animal can handle. So the pet tutor in those cases is used for you to step out of the room for a very short period of time and then come back in and then start to lengthen the time, transition to the auto mode. But it is a, you know, whether you use pet tutor or not, SA is one that takes some patience and time.
And
Absolutely.
finally, Eileen, we also have Tiffany, who says, how would you eventually take the pet tutor away and have the dog be able to become calm when the tutor is not around?
So I would, just one of the things, I want to insert this. When we take the pet tutor away, just as a safety thing, which I should have said before, but your question's making me think about this. When we move the pet tutor from in front of the dog, we always do a food drop or a food scatter, pick up the pet tutor while the dog is doing the food scatter, so that we're not igniting any resource guarding or anything along those lines. Because sometimes we are working with dogs of sort of unknown history. But what I would do, fading anything that's as prominent as that is always going to be important. So what we would continue to do, though, is remove the pet tutor, position the person in the adoption aisle, and the dog can still get clicked from a distance by that person. And then the person simply walks a little loop, so they can either do a thumbs up, which the dogs we use as an alternate method of using a clicker. So we give them a visual from the adoption aisle and walk in and do that. Or we can go actually in the kennels and do the manual click for quiet. So that's a way of fading the pet tutor from the picture.
Definitely. I think
Eileen, do you ever leave it in place when it's not in use?
No, we don't.
Okay.
That's more just a things can happen.
Yeah.
Unsecured space, the public could walk in there and be like, hey, what's this? So we tend not to have it out if we're not using it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
this question actually might relate to our next video that you will be talking about, but have you had any feedback from people who have adopted dogs from Pet Tutor using shelters? Do they backslide in their new home without the use of a pet tutor? Going from using a pet tutor in the shelter to being adopted out and then not having that pet tutor there with them?
That is typically, no, I've not gotten any feedback ever from anybody along those lines. I mean, I don't know that people are necessarily aware that we are using the pet tutor, but that's a fantastic, yeah. So no, we've never gotten that feedback.
Easy question then, huh?
Yeah. We should start telling people, hey, your dog is pet tutor trained and you should go get a pet tutor. So, okay. I am anxious to move on because we've got a bunch more videos and I'm happy to stay as long as possible and answer questions.
Yeah,
So,
great questions. Yeah.
I will get the next video up.
Okay. So this one is on, this is a case study of a particular dog. So you kind of saw the big picture of how we sometimes will use the pet tutor in a shelter environment. That's not the only way we use it. We also, if you're familiar with fantastic work of Deb Jones in the area of cooperative care. So we use the pet tutor to help us with some dogs that really often need extra help. So let me, if you're ready to go, Nick.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about a particular dog, Patches, and he is a long-term resident at one of the shelters. And as you can see, he's drop dead gorgeous. He's a really cool dog. However, he has an extreme fear of strangers. If you can pause there, Nick.
Yeah.
Thanks. So as you can imagine, his fear of strangers not only makes it difficult for him to get adopted, hence he's a long-term resident, but his vet visits are highly stressful. So he generally has to be sedated. This is a picture of him at a vet visit. He's sedated, and they're doing the stuff they need to do in terms of vaccination and care, etc. But we are fortunate that we can work closely with this particular vet clinic, and they will work with us to try to keep, for dogs like Patches, stress levels low, high quality of care, and still, operate in a way that is legal and ethical for the vet. So the way we're using the Pet Tutor here, like I said, is as a conditioned emotional response. So if you want to go ahead and start and then put it on, I just need to, yeah, here we go. Thanks, Nick. So we want to keep them out of the vet office when possible. That's goal number one. So we're going to do routine teeth care, brushing, nails, all that kind of good stuff. We do need to practice or prepare for the worst. So he ended up with, you can see that tooth is chipped there.
Oh.
In a short period of time, he also had a mass develop on the side of his face. Those needed care. So what we're doing, I want to stress that I am not a vet. I'm not a vet tech. I don't want to be any of those things. I'm actually kind of squeamish. But we will practice vet type scenarios. So one of the things that we'll do is give what I call mock injections. So here we are, Patches. If you can pause here, Nick, please. So we're giving a mock injection. I've simply got a pen or pencil. He's getting a tap with the exposed end of the writing instrument. He's got his Pet Tutor in front of him. He has a strong reinforcement history of being, getting clicked or getting reinforced for laying down in front of the Pet Tutor. So at this point, you can see that we're in COVID mode. So we're outside. We're doing as much as we can outside. He's up on a platform, and I've got the Pet Tutor in tilt mode, which means I'm operating it from my foot. It's the clicker is in my sock, and I just tilt that. Once he tolerates, just he's getting desensitized to the pinch or the poke on his rear end. He gets clicked for that, and we just do a few repetitions and we stop. So we do this to prepare him for when we can give him vaccines at the shelter, so he doesn't have to go to the clinic, or if he does need to go to a vet clinic, to prepare him for the sedation shot that he will require. So Nick, if you can start that, please. Thanks. So you see his little tail wag. He's happy to do this. He's participating in his care. Then you see the foot pump. He gets his reinforcement, and we're done. We're careful to practice with multiple people in multiple settings so that he can help generalize this behavior. Typically, we have a mutt nut down. This was shot at the actual vet visit. And here, this is going to happen really fast. He's going to get a shot here. This is for leptospirosis. I'm like, seriously, was that it? Okay, if you can stop there. I just want to say, he was so conditioned to and desensitized to these little pricks that the actual injection, it surprised me and it surprised him in that it was so easy. It was like, I'm like, what the heck? I don't have, like I said, I don't have a lot of practice giving injections. We do a lot of mock injections, but for obvious reasons, I don't go around just sticking him needlessly with needles. So anyhow, with his environment in a shelter world being so tumultuous, what we have found is that the Pet Tutor is like the constant for him. So he might be working with volunteer A or intern B or with me, but really what stays the same is that the experience with the pet tutor is going to be a conditioned emotional response, one of like, hey, this is cool, you know, I'm gonna get cookies out of this machine, I can deal with this. So I kind of liken it to this picture. Here he is on the left with some other dogs. But what I love to see happen when I pull out my camera is that my dogs give me happy face, because that means they realize the camera means cookies for them. And so that's what brought about these happy faces. And that's how I kind of think of the pet tutor for Patches. It's his happy time. He's glad to do it. And on those few occasions when it does really hurt, like the shot for sedation, it's a big needle. We've built up that reinforcement history, and he can tolerate that in a way that's not possible otherwise for him. So I think that's...
What, Eileen,
Yeah.
what is, for those that may not know, CER? Could you explain CER, creating a
Yes.
CER?
Yeah, conditioned emotional response. So his emotional response through the conditioning with the injections is that this is okay, I can deal with this. So that's where we want to get him. We want him to be happy, but we will take, you know, sometimes, you know, it does, the stick, I mean, it doesn't feel good to get a stick, but he's happy to do it. You could see that he was not muzzled. He was muzzled in the one picture, but for the most part, you know, like when we're giving him his leptospirosis, he can leave. He's not muzzled, and we've built up that trust and that relationship. So we've got that, you know, money in the bank for those days when we need to do a withdrawal.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So I think, Nick, if you want to forward that,
Yeah.
I think that's almost to the end of this particular one. Oh, we have used it with bathing, and I'll actually talk more about that in the next video. So that's just a little sneak preview. So again, questions or discussion? I'd love to hear.
How long did this process take, the conditioning?
Yeah, I will say that it took him, you know, I can't say, oh, it took 2 weeks, because I don't have that kind of information, but I will say that, I don't know, maybe I'm guesstimating 3 weeks of training, maybe 2 times or 3 times a week. And now he's on a maintenance schedule. We don't do it as often. So we kind of do a lead up if we know there's a scheduled vet visit upcoming, or a scheduled injection that we need to do. So in the lead up, it'll be a little more intensive. But for the most part, it's on a maintenance program that was put in place after a couple weeks of training.
Couple other questions. Did you vary the value of treats in the smart training feeder?
We've played around with value in the pet tutor. So yeah, I'm a fan of using the Zooks. I mean, they're kind of mid-value, but they don't need special storage, you know, a whole lot of, they're not super fussy. And the dogs often will get, you know, more than one, so they're rubbing around a little bit. So that's actually a plus as far as we're concerned. So we kind of use a mid-value, and he's pretty food motivated. He's not fussy, so that works well for him.
And then finally, Linda H is asking, can you use a CER for a dog that doesn't like to be groomed? For example, a dog that mats badly and quickly, a time when you were developing a response from the dog.
Oh yeah, you need to read Deb Jones's cooperative care book. And yeah, I mean, I use that for my own dog. I do not have a video of it, but I do have a mixed breed dog. You'll see him in just a little bit, who really does not like to be brushed and groomed. And when I would take him to the vet, he's a dog that has to be handled, he's got handling issues. But we have made really big strides by using the Pet Tutor with him. He doesn't mat or anything. He just does not like being handled. So yes, I would definitely look up Deb Jones's work. There's a Facebook group, and get her book. And I think you'll find that really helpful.
Perfect. And I added her name in the chat. Cooperative care is what her book is about. I want to say it's like the 7 steps to stress-free husbandry, maybe is the book title.
Yeah, yeah. And Deb, was here. You guys had her on a couple weeks ago. So that would be another place to find out more about how she approaches things.
Yeah, we have a recording of that presentation that she gave for us.
Yeah.
All right.
Moving on to the next video, Eileen.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, while Nick's queuing that up, someone said you could sprinkle freeze-dried liver on your kibble to increase the value, which I think is an excellent idea. That's one of Amanda's favorite tricks.
Okay. So we've been talking about sheltered dogs. And in this one, this will be with my own dogs. Nick, could you start that? I just want to kind of point out who some of the players are in this particular scenario. Okay. So one of the things, if you could pause that now, Nick, please. When I remember way back when Wes was talking about the Pet Tutor and developing it, was still very much in the developmental phases, as he mentioned before. And as he described the concept, my head immediately went to handling dog-dog reactivity and dog-dog pressure. Could use it in shelter environments, but also in the home environment, introducing a new dog, or just for existing dogs. If you're a dog owner, and you've got multiple dogs, sometimes there's just stuff that goes on. And I'm not talking in this case with my guys about stuff that sends anybody to the vet or anything like that, but there can be some dog-dog pressure. And so I have used the Pet Tutor for that. And so with this next video, which Nick, if you can start that, that'd be great. Here's just a really quick clip. These 2 dogs, Quigley on the left, he's my guy with the handling issues, Lucy's on the right. There can be some tension. So what I'm doing here, Nick, could you stop here for a second, please? Thanks. So if I can just kind of point out the logistics. Lucy's on the left. She's set up up on the climb with the Pet Tutor in the, she's just, her expectation is that she just lays there, gets cookies, and Quigley dog on the right, expectation is that he follow some really basic cues. What had happened was I had changed the arrangement in the garage, a little training space. I had changed the arrangement, and I did not want there to be confusion and any resource guarding over where dogs got rewarded. I want everybody to know where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. So her positioning on that particular bed is new. He had been in that spot. I decided I liked him better over on the other side, over on the right side of the screen. So we're just going through some stuff to kind of even out kinks that might develop if dogs don't know between them, if I'm not clear as to where I want them to be and what I'm wanting them to do. Lucy is a very sensitive dog, and so I'm using the Pet Tutor to build her confidence in that the approach of Quigley is a good thing, that she doesn't need to move and that he's not gonna, jump on her space and push her off. So this is like really simple stuff. It's like, do a little circle. Can you go up on your bed? Can you lay down? Do you know what's expected here? And I have found this to be helpful. I like to think that the dogs think it's a win-win. Each one is getting reinforced. When I click, both dogs are getting fed. So Nick, if you could get us back in action here, please. So dog comes over, close to Lucy, boom. He goes back, collects his cookie. He's just practicing basic skills. Can you get up here? Can you lay down? That's where you're gonna be. Yep, okay, good. I want to point out that if I had anything more than mild stress between these dogs, I would have use of tethers and baby gates and things like that. And I have used those things before, but I don't feel in this case that that's needed. So if you have more severe stuff, I would encourage you to use all the appropriate things to keep your dogs safe and healthy. So questions, comments?
Yeah, that's a very cool demo. That's one of the areas that I'm very interested in is counter conditioning, and the different levels. One dog at a higher level than the other. It seems like that's a good way to reduce the level of the stimulus. That you might end up having the dog a little less reactive than if they're coming on at the same level. Did you set it up for that reason, or do you have any thoughts about that?
When you say level, Wes, do you mean the physical positioning vertically?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the black dog's Lucy. Did I get that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so Lucy's up on the climb table, and the
Yes.
brown dog is down on the floor level.
Yes.
So when the brown dog approached Lucy, it wasn't at the same level.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I use the climbs with a Pet Tutor. I used to use a lower level, and it's really, I just have back issues. So part of the reason I like the climbs built up a little bit is just for strain on the back. But I absolutely see your point in that that particular positioning facilitates the goal of reducing stress. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
There's another question regarding that in the chat about the different levels, varying levels that you have the dogs on. Diana says she would potentially be concerned about status issues with dogs who have any sort of tension. I'm assuming maybe status of like dog feeling more overpowering than the other dog.
Because one dog's up high above the other dog, would that be intimidating maybe? I was looking at it just the opposite from the way I was thinking about it.
Yeah, and I think that it depends on the dog, and so if you're referring to your own dogs, you, I think, can sort of sort through what, excuse me, how the dogs might perceive the elevation. In this particular scenario, she's the one that would be more likely to feel stress. So I felt good about having her on the little higher elevation.
Yeah.
But I can totally see the argument the other way. I think it just gets down to the individual dogs. Yeah. That's a great point.
Are there any last minute questions, or we'll move on?
Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left in the hour.
Jeanette, did I see you raise your hand maybe? You can go ahead and unmute. I think you're still muted.
Yeah, there she is.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Our faces, our blocks were on the right, so I couldn't see. Did the brown dog also have his own Pet Tutor?
Yes, he did.
Okay,
Yes.
so when you click, did both tutors react, or how?
That's a great
Yes.
question.
How was Lucy getting her treats?
So Nick, could you pull up the video again?
Yeah, we'll try. Give me 1 second here. Sorry about this, guys. I closed out of it, but here it should be.
So here over on the right side is where Quigley is getting his reinforcement. And Lucy's off on the left getting her reinforcement. The same clicker. So when I click, both dogs are automatically getting reinforced, right? So Quigley, and I kind of view this as a almost as a squeeze and release. He goes over to her side. That creates some pressure. He collects his reinforcement away from her. There's kind of a release. It gets him out of the way. There's no issues with the food and, you know, a piece of kibble falling down in between the two of them or anything like that. So I like having him go back and get his food away from her, and but they are getting clicked at the same time. And that is the beauty of the pet, the smart clicker, because it can be put in mode where it's getting both pet tutors operating off of the same clicker.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully that helps answer your question there, Jeanette.
I think it does. I wonder, could I reward Quigley with my hand, with the treat in my hand away from?
Yes, if you had one pet tutor, that'd be a fabulous idea. Yeah.
I only have one at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
I've done it that way as well. You know, I'm basically running two sessions. You know, I've got one dog running off of the pet tutor and one just running off of what I'm giving out of my treat pouch with my hand manually. Yep.
Great. Thank you very much.
It makes your brain tired. Keep your sessions short.
So
Makes my brain tired. Maybe you do better at it, but it would just be my little tip.
We've got a couple more videos here. I think next up, Eileen, we've got water application. So I will get that video queued up.
Cool. Cool. All right. Well, we've been talking about some kind of serious stuff, shelter stuff and dog tension. So this one is about something a little bit more, for the most part, just kind of recreational. There's a little bit at the end that takes it in a little different direction. But let me start by saying this is real off-label. Okay. I think most people, when they think about the pet tutor, they think about, let me keep it as far away from water as I can. But again, I'm that gorilla with the coconut. I'm like, let me see how I can test this. Can I throw it down? Can I pop it up in the air? Can I twist it sideways? So, so we are, what I'm doing here, and if you want to start the video, there's a couple different behaviors. Here's Quigley. He stars in a lot of stuff. He's an excellent swimmer. He just didn't want to get in the canoe. And I was like, we could do so many fun things in the canoe. I love being outside with my dogs. I love doing, just outdoor adventures. So I really had it in my mind that I wanted him to go canoeing with me. You can also use it for bathing. We'll get to that. So canoeing with the pet tutor. I've done this with numerous dogs. Here's Nick and Duke. Here's how I trained Quigley. He was ultimately successful in canoeing. I start with some strong station training, the pet tutor with some sort of mat. In hindsight, I wouldn't use the mutt mat. I would use something that was rubber, but here we go. You put it, we're doing some dry land training, which means it's not moving at all. Can you stop here for a sec, Nick, please?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this situation, think about the pet tutor is being used here because you see Nick's, both of his hands are busy, right? Now, he could be, so in order to get out treats, you'd have to put down kayak paddle, or excuse me, the canoe paddle, and it just becomes really cumbersome. So in this setup, the pet tutor is in the canoe. He's doing dry land training. So he's first doing some paddling. I'm clicking from the shore, just 10 feet away. But he could be clicking, or he could have it in tilt mode and use his foot. His dog Duke is new to this. So I just want to stress with this, the dry land training, before you go anywhere, that is your foundation. Because if your dog spooks once you're out on the water and tips your watercraft, then you got a problem. So I've never lost a pet tutor. I've never drowned one. Okay. But I am pretty, I do the dry land training is pretty important. So Nick, if you could go ahead. So here you see just doing some paddling. He starts rocking the boat, and here's the power of choice. Duke says, I'm out. But then he says, I can go back in, right? So once out on the water, it's a little, so you're gonna wanna fade your pet tutor. You wanna get that pet tutor out of the canoe as soon as possible so that, you know, you kind of minimize your risk. But you can see that Quigley did learn how to do this. I got kind of excited about that. So I have 2 pet tutors, or I have access to 2. We got our 2 dogs in there. Obviously, if you've got resource guarding, be really careful. Make sure, you know, that's not going to create a problem. Another variation, Lucy, she'd love to canoe with somebody else. So I can send her out in the boat, and she's an excellent swimmer. She likes this person. I can activate the clicker from dry land. So anyhow, those are just, we're also using bathing. I have to give credit here to the Pet Tutors users group. This is where I saw this idea, but here's Patches again, getting desensitized to getting a bath. You can see how slow we're going. There's no splashing here. This isn't, you know, like dunk your dog in and, you know, pray for the best. We've got the goodies, the Pet Tutor components are covered, and we're going really slow. So those are just some applications. I think other people, like I said, I've gotten these ideas from some other people. And I think, Wes, isn't there someone also coming in doing stuff with water dogs and Pet Tutor?
Let's see, water dogs. You mean water sports? You mean that?
Yeah, water sports. Maybe I've got it wrong, but anyhow.
Yeah. Do we have somebody?
Penny Baker will be doing field dog
Field
applications.
dog, yeah.
Okay.
Next month, Penny Baker does field dog trials.
Okay.
And they have to go across actually quite a distance across water. They have to swim and do a retrieve. So yep, that's coming up.
Yeah. Okay.
For those of you that enjoy Eileen's webinar too and want to check out Penny Baker's, that is going to be on November 12th at 4:00 p.m. So same time, just different date, November 12th. And we'll have a different Zoom link sent out for you guys. So check that out on Facebook.
Yeah, and you don't have to be in field dog. I don't know anything about field dog training and field dog competition, so I'm kind of looking forward to just having Penny explain how that works.
Yeah. But getting back to the main point, does anybody have any questions for Eileen about water application?
I have a question. Hey, Eileen, thanks for presenting all this really interesting stuff.
Sure.
I was wondering, when you fade the pet tutor in the canoe, or maybe in any of these other applications, have you run into any problems fading it, and how do you address those? I don't know, behavior regression, or they, what have you noticed with fading?
Yeah, actually, the next video, I will show how I fade something in a different context, but with the canoe, and I think this would be but you'll see this in the next video as well, or one of the next videos. So when I'm doing the fade, I'm gonna lower my criteria, and I might go back a step or two. And so I might put the pet tutor in the boat, do a couple repetitions, then move the pet tutor and get the dog back in the boat, and just go back and do some dry land training so that the dog understands, hey, same stuff still applies. I'm gonna rock the boat, and now I'll toss you a cookie, okay? So now that the dog doesn't necessarily have to be at such a high rate of reinforcement, it becomes a little more practical to maybe have your treat pouch on or some food in your sweatshirt pocket and just toss it to the dog. The dog understands at this point that, yeah, the canoe will wobble a little bit, but it's not the end of the world. So, so you go back a little bit, and then you know, they achieve some success there. Then I might bring the pet tutor back in for a couple of repetitions and then take it out. So the dog is sort of crossing back and forth and understanding the game is really the same. I'm gonna be reinforced for maintaining calm position while the boat moves. And once they got that, in Quigley's case, I wanted to go somewhere specific with him. And once he understood the coolness of where we were going, he's like, okay, got this. So that always helps too. That makes
That's
it
cool.
easy.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, well, hopefully you got your brain tickled. If not about water, at least about using the pet tutor in maybe a little different way than you had thought of.
We've got one question in the chat too from Kara. It sounds like she's got a unique story. She would love to see ideas on how to get her dog out of the water. My dog needed to be rescued from his attempt to swim across Lake Tahoe.
Oh my gosh.
Woo! Okay. Well, actually, okay, so you need to come to the Penny Baker. All right, so I gotta tell you, I did a little, I saw her name as an upcoming speaker, and I jumped on and I was like, wonder what kind of stuff she does. And so it looks like, I don't know if this is what she's actually doing, okay, but this is what it looked like in the picture, and it got me thinking about how I could use this coconut in a different way, which is, it looked like dogs were being, were swimming and getting reinforced when they say got to the other side of the lake and or the pond. And so the pet tutor was positioned on the land instead of in the water. So if your dog has a strong history of reinforcement with the pet tutor, you might try. Dog comes out of the water and they get reinforced. So you might just flip the training. So dogs in the water doesn't, you know, you're going to constrain them. Maybe they don't go very far, and you call their name and they come back over, get reinforced for, you know, with the pet tutor. Dog goes a little further away, come back, get reinforced for coming back, have the pet tutor there. I have had an idea that if I took our pet tutor out to the island of our pond, that our one dog Quigley, he loves to go out to the island. He's a good swimmer. There's nothing that would, you know, but I think if he saw that pet tutor go out to the island, he would beeline out there. So kind of using that concept of the pet tutor becomes a, almost like a homing device. It's like, it's here, it's here, it's here. It's in a visual. You might try that.
No, so now somebody, we're really on the water topic now. Somebody's asking about the pool. I had an amazing dock diver who fell in the pool unexpectedly. Yeah, maybe we better go ahead and go to this last video.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, what we've been talking about are different applications for using the pet tutor, and you know they're kind of out there, some of them. I'll give you that. But I kind of wanted to shift the lens that we talk about the pet tutor, and I want to look at it or talk about it in terms of how it might be the case that the pet tutor helps you as the trainer be a better trainer and get more out of your pet tutor. And when I say get more out of your pet tutor, I don't necessarily mean like, use this battery backup, although that's not a bad idea. But so having said that, let's go ahead and so my quest is always, how can I keep improving as a trainer, and how can I train faster and more efficiently? How can I have better mechanics? How can I help dogs focus on what I want them to focus on? So that's where we're going in this next video. The first one is, the first little scenario is, how can I get my dog or a dog to move away from me? And that's harder for some dogs than others, depending on the breed, your temperament, how you interact with your dog, and the dog's breed and reinforcement history. But a lot of times our dogs get really good at doing stuff close and around us. So I'm going to be showing just a real simple behavior. This is a crawl, teaching a dog to crawl away from me. And Lucy already knows how to crawl towards me. So she's one of those, likes to be up close. I want her to move away from me using the pet tutor, bam. So if you can strategically place your pet tutor so that the dog sort of naturally wants to go there. Okay, so gradually adding some distance, she's getting it down. Boop. And here's where I was talking about, here's how I chose to fade the pet tutor. I'm putting it up on the hood of the car. She still knows it's there. I decrease my distance, bam, we click, I go over and I get the food from the pet tutor. So the pet tutor's not totally out of the picture. This time, if you could stop there for a second, Nick.
Yep.
So on that last one, the pet tutor was there, but I didn't reinforce from the pet tutor. So she hits the target, the paw target, and she comes, I've got the food on me now. So we're getting rid of the pet tutor. There's lots of different strategies for fading things, whether it's, the gates around a ring, or whatever it is that you're working on. There's lots of different ways to fade your prompts. This is just how I chose to do it in this situation. But I guess the key point is when I started getting rid of the pet tutor, I lowered the criteria, and I still had the pet tutor in the picture. So it wasn't a there, not there scenario. It was close by, and the first couple times I used it. So, so anyhow, main point here with this video is, I think you can train more efficiently. You can work with your dog's natural inclination by where you place the pet tutor. So that's, to me, a real benefit in terms of, improving how I go about my training. So in the second one, we're going to talk about training mechanics and getting good, clean training mechanics. So whenever you're ready, Nick. So, all right, I can't see your show of hands, but let me just ask, do we have any early reachers? Okay, so we're always taught, you click, then treat. Let me have you stop for a second if you could, Nick. This is a recycled video, yeah. Same video that we saw before with Quigley, but I'm gonna have you look at it from a different perspective. Now, I'll tell you that a lot of trainers, myself, I see it in my students, I see it in my interns, volunteers, other trainers, there can be this tendency to reach early for your treat pouch. So we ideally want to do click, then treat. But sometimes there seems to be a really strong drive to start reaching for that treat pouch, and before you've clicked or at the same time. And it becomes a big neon sign for the dog that reinforcement's about to happen. And so one of the things that I find helpful with the Pet Tutor is I can get the food off my body. So when you look at the video this time, there's all sorts of training errors you could, spot in here. I see them. They're right there in front of me too. But I want you to try to count the number of times I reached for the treat pouch early before I clicked. Okay, so if you can go ahead here. There's a click. There's a click. He's a little sticky on the Pet Tutor there, but there's a click. Okay, since I don't have food on my body, I'm not doing any early reaches. So I love that the Pet Tutor can help tune up, either maintain or build good training mechanics. So I think that helps the dogs really focus on what we want them to focus on in a training session, which is, in this case, following the stick, the target. Let me stop here, if I could.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this video is dense in that there's 3 different scenarios, so we'll probably get some hopefully good questions at the end, or comments. So the other thing that I find helpful, the third thing, is this has been an evolution as I've used the Pet Tutor. I found that over time, I've been able to get more use out of it. So early on, when I was working with dogs, I used the Pet Tutor primarily as you see in the dog here, I want you to either lay down or stand. Maybe you're on a grooming stand, maybe you're laying down on a mutt mat or some other station. But the dog's basic task was to have a relaxed, narrow focus. Lay down, get cookies. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But I found that sometimes I wanted the dog to move away from the Pet Tutor and do things with me. And then I wanted them to go back and get reinforcement. And I found that if they had been trained to just lay down in front of the Pet Tutor or stare at the Pet Tutor, that it was really hard to get them to come away from it. And I realized that was totally my fault, that's what I had reinforced. So what I have realized is that I can use context cues to help the dog build focus. So Nick, if you can go ahead and start the video, please. So I want the dog to focus on something, but what is it? So here's a shelter dog. It's his 3rd session with the Pet Tutor. He figures out, in this context, I lay down on this mat. I might look around, but it's in chase mode. Now, and Nick, if you could pause here.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. So what we've now done is we're on the opposite. We've moved the dog away into a different context. It's about 30 feet away. There's a gate in between where this dog is now and where he was before. He cannot access the red mat that was up on that platform before. I've switched the Pet Tutor. It's now in bowl mode. Okay, so the food is coming out of, it's being captured in that little bowl. So I've tried to provide the dog with a number of context cues that say, I want you to move away from the Pet Tutor under these circumstances. When we're running a different scenario, I want you just to lay there or stand there, okay? Now, what I've found over the years is if I don't introduce this high contrast situation early on, then it becomes hard for the dog to make this contrast and to understand, hey, you know, the scenario is different now. I should do something different. So you're going to see, this is his first time. This is Tootsie's first time moving away from the bowl. And I'm asking him for really simple, you know, target nose touches to my hand at very close proximity to the pet tutor. Now, let me state, we're outside and we're on a busy road. So there's some environmental distractions, but all things considered, I mean, to me, you can almost see a little thought bubble above his head going, it seems like something's different. This is gonna take something different than before. So Nick, if you could start the video up. So here he comes away. He's picking up his food. He's in bowl mode. He looks around for a sec, and then boom, hand touch, go back over, collect your cookies. Hand touch, go get your cookies. Now, I want to say that this is my latest thinking on this. Like I said, when I first used the Pet Tutor, I didn't use it in this way, and maybe in some of the video earlier, depending on what video you're looking, you might not see me use it in this way, but this is what I found to be most helpful if I'm going to want to use the Pet Tutor 2 different ways. And for me, I want to get the most out of my equipment, so I'm going to be like, yeah, of course I'm going to do that. So there's some interesting research in human learning realm, and I haven't seen it in the dog realm, but it makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it relates here, is that when you have learners focus in these high contrast environments, it's the same skill, right? You're interacting with, you're doing something with the pet tutor, but the context is different. And when you push that context early on, it initially suppresses learning. But in the long term, in terms of retention, it's actually better for learning. So I'm not surprised when I see the video of Tootsie that, you know, that there's some latency there, because I think he's thinking about it. But my guess is, and we just introduced this to him, you know, a week or so ago, that as we do this, he's a smart little cookie. He'll figure this out, and he'll be have those two environments, you know, plugged in and understand the difference. With some other dogs, when I haven't done that, getting them to move away from the pet tutor, if all they've ever done is, you know, have it in their crate and you use it for that purpose, when you try to get them to move away from it, it'll be harder. It's not impossible. It's just not going to be as efficient, in my opinion. So anyhow, that's kind of where I am with that. I know that last video had a lot of stuff in it. Happy to take questions and comments and problem solve.
So I think we had one question in the chat. For the crawl, when you had your dog crawling, she would hit the target with her paw, and then you would put the pet tutor up on the hood of the car to fade it away. Are you using a clicker to tell her she hit the target, or a word like yes when you fade the pet tutor away, or are you just relying on the pet tutor sound as the click?
Yeah, so that changes as I move through the repetitions. So on the very first time I used the pet tutor, when it was up on the car, I did use the clicker, and excuse me, the smart clicker with the pet tutor, and I went over and I got the cookie out of the pet tutor and brought it back down to her. And then over time, I just used I can't remember if I used the word yes or a standard clicker, but I faded the use of using the smart clicker. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and then another one referring to, I think these are just kind of specifics of the videos that were a little difficult to see. For the one where you were using touch and then rewarding with the pet tutor, are you cueing the touch cue or just waiting for him to offer it?
The hand targets in the last video, it's just a context cue of see my hand, bump my hand, so there's not a cue of touch with that.
Perfect. I think that answered the questions, but if anybody else has any more questions, feel free to unmute or type in the chat.
Okay, and while people are thinking about that, Eileen, if someone wanted to follow you or, or see what you're doing, what's a good place to go? I know you had a website and you have your not-for-profit. How do you prefer people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my website and the nonprofit are both at eileenudry.com. And that's a great way to get a hold of me. There's a way to send a message through the website. So that'd be a great way. Or, yeah, I'm on social media. I'm not huge into social media. Otherwise, I probably would have known more about how to interface Zoom with Facebook. But,
oh, you do now. You do now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so Nick just put that URL out there, eileenudry.com.
Yeah.
And Eileen, you're in the Pet Tutor user group too, so people
Yes,
can go
yes.
back and look at some of your earlier posts in there. If you're a part of that group. If you aren't a part of that group and you have purchased a Pet Tutor, definitely join that and answer the question there.
Yeah.
We'll accept you into the group. It's a really useful group.
Yeah, everything from, like what happened to my battery to here's how I'm using it. It's a lot of, there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah. Yep. And this has really been great. I've just over the years been enthralled in seeing what new way you might shake the coconut, Eileen. Very cool.
All right. Well, it's been fun. And if, I hope we've tickled each other's brains and sparked some ideas. And I'd love to continue the conversation. So like I said, jump onto the website, look me up that way, and I'd be glad to dialogue with anybody if you think of something after the fact.
I do remember we had one question.
There was
Sorry.
one at the beginning we said we would pick up.
Yeah, Tyson. Sorry about that, Tyson. I want to use the Pet Tutor to work on stopping him picking up anything on the ground, shoes mostly, and to stop counter surfing.
So yeah, and this is a 10-month-old service dog in training lab.
Yeah. He was going to be a service dog, but I don't think he is going to be a service dog anymore. But are there any do's and don'ts, tricks to use for counter surfing or working on picking up things off the ground?
Let me guess, this is a lab, Mitch?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So counter surfing can be a hard one because if the dog is able to sneak in there and access reinforcement on their own, then it's going to really undo a lot of your training or your efforts to curb that behavior. So for me, a big thing always with counter surfing is there a way to keep the dog from being in the kitchen in the first place? And if you can get that number like to 100%, then it really, really helps. And what I mean by that is gating off your kitchen. So I use, for our dogs, I use, just a baby gate. And what you might do when so the baby gate is up all the time until the dog is reliable about not going in the kitchen. But basically establishing a green zone of reinforcement that happens outside the kitchen. So dogs can come up to the line right outside to get into my kitchen or get into our kitchen. I'm going to try to catch them, reinforce them for being in that area. So with the gate, I can be assured they're not jumping over the line. If I'm going to do training, you might set up your pet tutor, get out a mutt mat, and basically station train them to stay outside your kitchen with the pet tutor right there. So you saw how, like with Quigley and the station training for the canoe, it's basically take that concept and land it in your kitchen or outside of your kitchen. And then you can gradually fade the pet tutor. So you might put it up on a nearby surface. Dog comes over, stays outside the kitchen, settles down. They're in that green zone for reinforcement. Click, go deliver the food, and then in a similar manner, get rid of the pet tutor over time. So that would be kind of my 1, 2, 3 quick answer for pet tutor and counter surfing. I will encourage you to think about something in terms of your how you approach any kind of problem behavior. We often frame it in terms of what I want the dog not to do, but what I would encourage you to think about is how are you going to build a different behavior? So the pet tutor helps build a different behavior. So in this case, build a behavior of lay quietly outside of the kitchen is what the pet tutor could really be helpful for. Same thing with the picking up stuff. Think of that, or not picking up stuff. What behavior do you want instead? And try to plug the pet tutor into, if it makes sense. The pet tutor isn't applicable in every situation. It's applicable in a lot of situations, but not every situation. But if it makes sense, plug the pet tutor into an equation that includes what behavior do I want to build instead. And I think that'll, really help clarify how you get there.
Okay. Well, we had just a quick question on what chase mode was. The floor base has 2 sides to it. One is the bowl. Eileen mentioned bowl mode. And it's got a little lip on it, and it falls into the bowl. Oh, there. Yeah, Amanda is holding up the floor base. The back side, there you go. Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, so it's got the little chute, and then when it dispenses, it shoots out the back. There it went. If you could see it, it spit out a treat, and it slides out the back. We called it chase mode because the dog has to chase it. If it's on a floor, it'll shoot across the floor. So that was that. Well, I think we're going to have to wrap up for today. Wonderful, wonderful discussion. Lots of good questions. We really appreciate everybody coming by. Again, if you're not a member of the user group, that's a good place to get plugged in.
Definitely.
And, stay tuned for future presentations. We mentioned next month we're going to do field dog training and competition with Penny Baker. So stay tuned for that. And thank you very much, Eileen. Wonderful discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah.
It's hard to give a round of applause on a virtual meeting. We can give silent round.
I made my first rookie session, and the world did not collapse.
Yeah, you're an expert now. All right. See ya.
See ya.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.